D Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, and David Janes here with you. I hope everybody is having a wonderful start to their Friday. I have an etiquette question for the two of you to start today's show. So yesterday I was traveling home from picking my son up from school. And as most of you know, I live in East Nashville. So I passed by Nissan Stadium on my way home from picking up my son. Last night, of course, Metallica played Nissan Stadium. Chase McCabe was there. Joe Rexrode was there. And as I was stuck in traffic, because there was a lot of traffic heading in that direction, I noticed a lot of fans walking toward the stadium wearing Metallica t-shirts. And I was raised to believe, and by raised, I don't mean by my parents.
By yourself?
By my fellow concert goers when I was younger, that it is uncool to wear a t-shirt of the band you are going to see in concert. Are either of you familiar with this concert etiquette, and do you subscribe to it?
I'm not familiar with it, but I look at it sort of like a game. You know, you go to the game and you wear the jersey.
You wear your jersey.
Yeah, you wear your jersey. So I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't wear, if I was to go to a concert, I wouldn't wear that performer's shirt. I wouldn't do that, but I'm not going to scoff at somebody else that chooses to wear, a Metallica shirt or, a Prince shirt when the late great Prince was alive. I mean, a lot of people get into costumes, when they go to concerts and plays and stuff like that. So I don't see this as being any different, but I don't do it.
I don't think there's a hard fast rule that I have. You're the first person to bring this up, so I feel like I would have had somebody bring this discussion to my attention before. I've never done it because I'm not one that buys the expensive t-shirt when I go to the concert. Usually the line's so long, even if I had a thought of wanting to get it, I quickly look at the line and say, t-shirt's expensive. Do I want that? I'm not going to wait. So I'm probably not the right guy to ask. But so what's the big beef?
Yeah.
When was
what's
this
your beef?
When was this first discussed in your circles? What age? What was the concert?
Or when did you ever get that upset at someone?
I never got upset about it, but I think it also depends by genre, right? Like a lot of people who went to the Metallica concert last night are probably Joe Rexrode's age. A lot of old heads, a lot of old metal heads.
Oh, Joe. Oh, okay.
Yes.
And Chase.
Yes. Chase is slightly younger
than
Joe Rexrode.
Chase is an appreciator of
Joe
classics.
Rexrode. He called me old head.
So he would be on the younger side of the
right.
demographic.
I think it depends by genre. Like, I think it might be okay in the metal genre to wear the t-shirt of the band that you're seeing in concert. Maybe it was in the genre of music that I was raised in, which is if you went to Vans Warped Tour every summer like I did, the punk and the emo kind of music.
Okay.
I think it might be a no-no there. It might also be a no-no in indie rock circles because you might be trying too hard or appear that you're trying too hard by wearing a band t-shirt to the concert you're going to. I don't know, but it's something that's been ingrained in my mind since I was younger and going to concerts regularly. So when I saw a couple of Metallica fans crossing the street wearing Metallica shirts, I was like, I don't think they should be doing that. That's not cool. But I digress. I wondered if anybody else
I just look at it. I look at it as a jersey. That's how I look at it.
Was there any other, trinkets or accessories to go with the shirt that kind of put it over the top for you? Like, if it's just a shirt and you're dressing regular, or do you need to like go all in with like wristbands and drumsticks?
So the people I just saw
or something.
The people I saw were just wearing t-shirts, Metallica t-shirts going to the Metallica concert. I also subscribe to the theory that if you are a sports fan, I feel like you can only wear one major piece of paraphernalia to a game. So if you're going to a Titans game and you're going to wear a Titans jersey,
don't wear the hat.
Don't wear a Titans hat.
Not even to a game?
No.
I think you're okay at a game.
Too much.
He has some.
I don't think you go to work like that on the day.
Nah, you can't go unless it's like Titan Day.
I subscribe to the
Day.
I'm up for the one piece at a time.
Yeah. I don't want
for
somebody
all
decked
things
out.
except for the game. The game, I think you can go full passion. You can go all out.
Outside the game, you can't be all decked out. Now, can you go to a Metallica concert with a Def Leppard shirt on? Can you do that?
What if you appreciate all bands? And you're just trying to show it.
And you just want to wear that band.
Do you
shirt.
risk going on the Jumbotron as the lost fan? We have a lost fan. He thinks Def Leppard's playing here.
I mean, because you can do that at a sporting event, you know?
Right. And that was a funny gag that the LA Kings did to a Vegas Golden Knight fan when they were playing the Predators. They put a Vegas fan, the Kings Predators, lost fan. Can you please help this person? He thinks Vegas is playing here.
Oh, man.
Wes and Hermitage says, Adam, stop lying, man. I saw you at the Morgan Wallen concert at Nissan Stadium and you were wearing your crop top Wallen shirt with the blue jeans and boots. I have the picture, man. No denying
I'd like to see that picture.
I don't think you would ever catch me at a Morgan Wallen concert.
Oh.
Not my genre of music.
Oh, my goodness. What genre is he? Is he country?
He's country,
Pop?
yeah.
Yes, he's country.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Nevertheless, I just wanted to get it out there. So if you have heard this same theory, you let me know. 615-737-1025. But yesterday, we were introduced to Tyler Lockett. The Tennessee Titans held news conferences for Brian Callahan. Chika Okonkwo spoke and really pissed Jared off because apparently he went on too many vacations during his offseason. Peter Skoronski spoke. Xavier Woods spoke. But Tyler Lockett was the highlight of the group. And first of all, he, before taking questions, shook the hands of every reporter in the room.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he gave a really funny response, asked why he would do that. He basically said, look, we're going to be together almost every day, just like I am with my teammates and my coaches. So I think it's important that we get to know each other. And he even said, look, you guys are going to be the ones writing the story. So who knows, maybe that handshake, you'll be a little bit easier on us down the road, which I thought was funny. But some really interesting sound bites from Tyler Lockett. By the way, he did say that he actually grew up a Titans fan and went to the Titans playoff game versus Baltimore during the 2008 season, which means he saw Derek Mason haul in a 48-yard touchdown from Joe Flacco in the Ravens 13-10 win.
Yeah, I'm sure he pretty much did. Yeah, I think everybody in the stadium saw that.
Absolutely.
I saw it.
I saw it.
I saw it.
I was there.
But Tyler Lockett, so if you haven't heard this, Quandre Diggs, who played for the Titans. Is he still on the roster, Quandre Diggs?
No, I don't think
I
he's
thought
on
he
the
signed a 1-year deal. I
can't
think
recall.
he's back.
But Quandre Diggs, who played with Tyler
No, he's not.
Lockett in Seattle, is Cam Ward's cousin, if you hadn't heard that before.
I think I read that out of an athletic article the day after round one.
Right. So here was Tyler Lockett on his first impressions of Cam Ward.
Tyler, how much has Quandre maybe told you about Cam and just from afar, even though you haven't gotten to play with him yet, what is it that stands out about his game that you like?
Oh, yeah. Well, Quandre always used to talk to me about Cam ever since he was leaving Incarnate Word and went to Washington State, where I got the chance to be able to watch him. And if I didn't watch him, I heard about him the night before the game because Quandre made sure to tell us his stats, how many touchdowns he threw. And definitely Quandre was like his number one fan. And so just being able to tune in a lot more because we're on the West Coast and we got to see a lot of their games being played. And then seeing him thrive in Miami was super, super cool. And again, like just that connection with Quandre and Cam, I started to be able to learn more about him. And so ever since he's gotten drafted, Quandre put us in a group message and I was able to talk to him and stuff like that, like the day before the draft. But he's definitely a cool dude, super eager, and he cares a lot about being great and cares a lot about football.
He must be drumming on the podium because that's what that was. What is that? Boom, boom, boom. But that was Tyler Lockett on his first impressions of Cam Ward. But later in the news conference, he was asked about the challenges for veteran wide receivers of working with rookie quarterbacks.
What's the biggest challenge about working with a rookie quarterback?
I feel like it's a challenge working with anybody. Like, if we're being honest, like, it's not even just on a quarterback. I mean, it's a challenge whenever every year you're bringing in a whole new team. I've been a part of 3 coordinators in the last 3 years. So there's a challenge in learning different plays, right? Like, so everything is going to come with a challenge. It's just about what you're willing to go, what you're willing to attack and what you're willing to complain about. So, I mean, there's always going to be complaints when it comes to whatever situation regarding of what we're going to have to deal with as a team. But, to buy in eliminates a lot of the complaints. To attack, to be aggressive, eliminates a lot of the complaints. There's going to be things that doesn't work. It's okay. You learn, you keep going. There's going to be things that work. You continue to build off of it. You grow off of it, but you just continue to look at where you are and where you guys want to be. And as you keep just putting your head down, eventually you're going to get to where you want to be at. But if you keep looking at that destination, you keep forgetting about the small steps that you got to keep taking before you get to the top.
So that was Tyler Lockett, kind of a non-answer to that question. But I did want to ask for Derek's perspective on that same question, because as I said, Tyler Lockett was at the 2008 playoff game between the Ravens and the Titans, where Derek Mason hauled in a 48-yard touchdown pass from a rookie quarterback by the name of Joe Flacco. So Derek, using your experience, what are, if there are any, challenges what are the challenges for a veteran wide receiver as you start to work with a rookie quarterback?
First, I want to say, Tyler, I think what he said was true. There are a lot of other, things that you have to worry about, or things that are going to be difficult or challenging. You just have to figure it out as you go through the season and try not to look back. He was right. If it works, then you find a way to keep doing it different ways. If it don't work, you can't, get upset about it. You got to move on and try to find something that does work. But the challenges of working with a young quarterback, there's always challenges, man. I think the biggest one is to make sure that his confidence, I think that's the biggest challenge, because young guys, whether it be a quarterback, a receiver, whoever, they tend to get down on themselves. And you got to help them sort of fight through that. You got to continue to encourage them. I was always told, just the best way you can help a quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback, just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's it. And he will start to get familiar with you, and he will start to trust you. So that was the biggest thing, in watching Joe, because when I started playing, Steve was already in the league a few years. And when he became a starter and I became a starter, he was 2 years, 3 years up on me. So there was the difficult part about that was just getting a rhythm. But when you're dealing with the rookie quarterback, it's the potential up and down, moods that they may occur because of the way the game's going, or they may have made a mistake, or may have thrown, the ball, too far ahead of you, and they think it's their fault. And sometimes they may get down on themselves. No, you just got to continue to encourage them, continue to talk to them. So those are typically the difficulties that you may run into. It's just the length of the season, the emotions of the season, and trying to make sure that he's always tapped in, meaning the quarterback. Make sure that rookie quarterback stays tapped in.
Willie, what were your early impressions of Tyler Lockett?
Seems to be an impressive guy. I thought of Steven Stamkos and his hearkening back to when he was an 18-year-old player in the NHL, and he was on a bad team. He was on Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay had the first pick. That usually means your first team or two It's not going to be very good. That's probably going to be the case with the Titans.
Mhm.
In fact, I'd love to see what is the best record. What are the best records of a team that had the first pick the following year?
Sounds like a
It
homework
sounds like a
assignment
job
for me.
Sounds like a job for Adam Bingen.
Maybe
can
we'll talk
probably
about
find it
that.
pretty quick.
We'll talk about that on Monday, perhaps.
Because I think we have to brace ourselves that this is going to be a learning experience. And so what Steven Stamkos said was on that Lightning team, there were some guys that really were good influences on him. Marty St. Louis, Mark Recchi.
Would Vincent LeCavalier have been on
Vincent
those teams?
LeCavalier, absolutely. So I think that you can hopefully surround Cam Ward with some good influences and guys that maybe one day when Cam Ward is more of a veteran and looks back on the building blocks,
Mhm.
that a player like Tyler Lockett could be a positive force on that.
The one thing I like about Tyler Lockett, again, just from what I heard and what I know of his career, there are a couple of things. One, he rarely misses games. I believe it's 3 games in his 10-year career that he has missed because of either injury or illness. That's always a good thing. The other thing, too, is the fact that he seems comfortable in his skin in the sense that he knows he's coming in here and he's probably going to be playing a supporting role. Derek, you talked about last season with DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, that maybe DeAndre Hopkins wasn't at that stage of his career where he could accept a lesser role, and that you called it. You said it wasn't going to work, and we saw it play out. DeAndre Hopkins, he lost his smile. He lost his love of the game before he was traded from the Titans to the Chiefs. I don't see that being an issue with Tyler Lockett. He seems comfortable at the stage of his career that he's in, and I could see him being a really good influence, not just on Cam Ward, but the young players in the locker room as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't know how he was in Seattle, but it seems like just listening to him, you can tell he's a guy that's seen the ups and the downs of a team and been to the highs and been through the lows and had to work himself through situations. That's just the way he speaks. It gives off that that calmness and that hey, listen, this is what we got to do, and we can't look back, and if it's not working, then we got to find something else. He's always thinking about the next step and the positive aspect of it, and not dwelling on the past. And you can't dwell on the past, especially when you have a young quarterback. But I mean, he, unlike Hop, and this is no slight to, I don't mean this as no slight to Lockett, but he was never at Hop's level.
Right.
He was never. So I knew the minute Ridley got here, I said, this is not going to work, especially if they start losing. It is not going to work. And it didn't. And they shipped him off to Kansas City. I think in this situation, because he's been through it the year prior, when it was sort of his snaps got taken away. He got demoted in a sense. He stopped being one of the main targets in their offense. I think through that whole process, I think he learned a lot about himself and learned a lot about where he's headed in his career. So when he comes here, like you said, he's comfortable in not that he doesn't want to excel and play great, but he's comfortable where he's at. He's not coming in thinking, I'm the number one option. He's been through, the sort of fire already the year prior. So he comes here and he's ready. He's like, whatever you want me to do. If it's a 2, I'll play the 2. If it's the 3, I'll play the 3. If it's coming in and only on, I do whatever I need to do to help out this young quarterback in this team. And that's the type of veteran guy that you need, because he was never a guy. It's hard to take a guy that has been the guy for many, many years, and I'm talking about been like Hop. It's hard to then ask those guys to take a much lesser role. But for a guy like Lockett, he had his game. He's a good player, damn good player. But I think the step down isn't as far as he starts to get older, where Hop, it's like a hop skipping a jump back for him.
I see what you did there.
You like it, don't you?
615-737-1025. Bravo. 615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Tyler Lockett as he introduces himself to Nashville, the newest member, or one of the newest members, I should say, of the Tennessee Titans. 615-737-1025. Speaking of new-ish members of the Tennessee Titans, there is a subject that I do want to get to that I've been meaning to get to for the past couple of days, and I would really like to finally get to it today. And we will do that next. 615-737-1025. Let me tell all of you to tune into 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Nashville Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pregame begins at 5:50 and the first pitch is at 6:05. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Sounds Baseball on 94.9 The Fan is presented by Twin Peaks and Family Leisure.
How did you help Mike through that process?
Yeah, obviously, Mike led this entire process, and that's why we hired Mike to lead the draft, free agency, building the roster, and I have complete trust in him. And how I helped. There's a lot of other people in this building that I gotta care for and be there, and other departments I got to run. So one of the nice things about this setup was that while they were in the draft room, there were times where I had to get pulled away for various meetings for an hour or two, and I'd come back and Mike would say, "Hey, we looked at these 5 players, but you really need to focus on these 3." So it really helped my workload to be able to know what to focus on and have the full trust in Mike that I believe in him, and he knows what he's a really good evaluator. And the humility that he has is just tremendous. And it helped me still be involved in the process. But ultimately, my trust is in Mike. I mean, I think he's outstanding, and I'm glad we have him.
That was Chad Brinker on Titans GM Mike Borgonzi. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Mingan here with you. What are you doing?
And Mike, we trust. That's the new slogan.
I thought you were going to start singing Bob Marley.
I did think that was. I thought that was happening.
And Mike, we trust. That's the new slogan, man.
So I think now is a good time to take stock of Mike Borgonzi. It's early, but we've passed free agency. We've passed the draft. And I know that Mike Borgonzi is going to be judged by what the Titans do on the field. But I thought this would be a good time for all of us to share our early impressions of Mike Borgonzi. And Gentry Estes of the Tennessean wrote a column. I believe this was earlier this week, April 28th. That would have been earlier this week. I don't remember what day it is, other than the fact that today is May 2nd. With the headline in the Tennessean, with Mike Borgonzi, Tennessee Titans are starting to resemble a well-run team again. And Gentry Estes writes, quote, I know, I'm one of the biggest skeptics around, but I'm sensing that the biggest upgrade this offseason by the Titans won't be at quarterback or anywhere else on the field. It'll be in the front office, where new football CEO Chad Brinker didn't just hire a serious football GM in Mike Borgonzi, and evidently he's staying out of Borgonzi's way. The Titans added several serious football people. Former NFL GMs Reggie McKenzie and Dave Ziegler, along with Borgonzi, have brought welcome expertise. It may not be a strength yet, but no longer is the Titans front office the weakness that it was the past 2 seasons with Rand Carthon as GM. Gentry Estes continues, Borgonzi has a vision for long-term success, disciplined and grim as it might seem in the short term. His Titans have been busy clearing the decks. This is a rebuild from the foundation, and they are serious about seeing it through, even if it isn't sexy or popular or a path for immediate success. So again, we are going to judge Mike Borgonzi as Titans GM and Chad Brinker as the supreme ruler of football on what the Titans do on the field over the next few years. But from what you've gathered from Borgonzi and listening to him speak, the things he's said, the free agent signings he's made, the draft picks he's made, Willie, what are your early impressions of the Mike Borgonzi era in Tennessee?
Well, Mike Borgonzi himself, I think, is a little different than the team, and they're obviously intertwined. It seems like it's going fine. I think, as we say a lot of times, we'll find out when you start facing the tough times is when you find out what a group is made of. It would be nice for this group to get off to a good start and have some hits in the draft. So I think it's way too early to make that judgment at all. I like how they handle themselves, although you know me, I have been very critical of the thought process of the group of not trading out of the first pick, knowing how many holes they have to fill. So I'm still going to hold that thought, but I do think that they look like they work together pretty well. I'm not in there every day, but so far so good.
Derek, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, every GM, head coach, supreme ruler of football, they all come in with a vision, and they all come in with a tagline, and they all come in with a mission. And you just hope in all of that they assemble a good team, and that team starts to take form early, and that they have some early success. So listen, I'm not going to be too high on this regime or too low on this regime. Just like any other, they got to prove it, and they are in a difficult situation. And this roster has been in a difficult situation for the last 3 seasons, and they just inherited, more of the mess, from the last regime. It was a mess when Rand took it over, and it didn't seem as if much changed. I would say, he got a few good players out of it, but for the most part, that the roster, the talent didn't change much, because they still don't have the depth that they need. So he made some good moves in free agency. The left tackle, I'm still kind of hesitant about, but hey, listen, you had to find somebody that can play that position because you wanted to move JC over to right, and you found your guy. Hopefully it works out, but they are doing the things that they said. Wow, this is crazy. They're doing the things that they said they were going to do, and they're trying to hold steady to that. You got to give them some years now. Just because it may not work today doesn't mean it's not setting up something for next year or the year beyond. Seems like right now they're making the right moves.
I think
of now.
That's a good point. I think in 3 years is when I think you look at what they've done and ask yourself, how is it going?
Mhm.
I think we could have said, hey, we're really optimistic about how Rand Carthon looked after one draft. You just can't. I don't think you can reasonably. It's just you're guessing.
That's why I said early impressions.
Yeah.
That's why I said.
Well, that's
early
what I
impressions.
mean. You can't make any mistakes now. There's no games being played right now, so there's nothing unless you want to nitpick everything and start shooting holes. I do think the biggest decision they made was not to trade the first pick.
And
So
you can include that in your early impressions.
That is my early impression. So only time is going to tell. But I like how they handle themselves. They seem like they work well together. They seem like there wasn't any friction going on beneath the surface. But this is the first year, so they haven't hit the storms yet.
I'm going to read more from Gentry Estes' column because I agree with him on this point. Quote, Borgonzi is already proving a good hire, if only because he and Brinker as well have taken a suitably sober approach to cleaning up the mess. It's refreshing, in fact, he writes later, to see the Titans no longer insulting everyone's intelligence by trying so hard to convince them otherwise in terms of being a competitive team.
But remember, they still had Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill and Kevin Byard when Ryan Carthon took over. So they came into a bleep storm, right? They came into a total rebuild.
Let me continue.
That's not fair to Ryan Carthon because Mike Vrabel was clearly trying to hang on and win, and that was the task of Rand Carthon at that moment.
Let me continue this last line from the column that I'll read, and then you can respond. The legacy of Carthon's disappointing 2-year tenure will be how he depleted the Titans roster while also depleting trust from a fan base that had to feel duped by all the false bravado.
Depleting the roster of what? They didn't have. See,
that was the task of Mike Vrabel.
But this,
right?
But this is what confuses me. He depleted a roster of what? This was an aging team. That window was gone. The quarterback had gotten hurt. The only thing this team had was the running back, Derrick Henry. I mean, they had good players, but the one thing that you just held on to and said, we're going to have a chance, it would be with Derrick Henry. But they tried it, and it didn't work. So as a team, they had to figure out, how do we start this process now? And I go back to what Willie said. The minute they got rid of Derrick Henry on him, even before that, they should have said this is a rebuild. But the minute they got rid of Derrick Henry, last year, they should have came out and said, this is a rebuild.
Right. Absolutely.
Because they had.
But that was, remember, that was year 2 of Rand Carthon.
Exactly. They
if you
had
talk about
to do that.
Year 1, they still believed that they could win that division. And that was a Mike Vrabel push in my mind. And Rand Carthon was sort of thrust in there after the surprising firing of John Robinson. And I don't think Rand really had a choice. I think Mike Vrabel's like, I'm running this ship. I'm not here to rebuild. We still have Ryan Tannehill and all of these players that are trying to hang on to the window. Am I wrong? That's a completely different situation, and it didn't work very well. I do think this group came in more collectively. There's more first-year people that are doing a fresh start here. And so I think the circumstances are very different.
Well, here's the biggest thing for this regime that the last regime had to deal with. This regime doesn't have those veteran players. They just don't. They don't have.
They don't have a choice.
Those guys that had been here like pillars. They didn't have Derrick Henry. They didn't have Kevin Byard. They didn't have these guys that were entrenched in his organization. So when they come basically with a clean slate. It's like we get to build this team the way we want it. Well, Rand made his mistakes. Okay, whatever transpired. He didn't do the job good enough. That's why he doesn't have a job anymore. So don't think I am making an excuse for it. But when you come into a situation when you have when this team is being led by veterans, and one really damn good one in Derrick Henry, and the others are sort of phasing out, and a head coach that has done some winning, you almost like, okay, we're going to try to keep winning. I'm not going to try to rebuild right now. We still got core players, but it didn't work. So the next season, in the middle of the season, they traded away Kevin Byard. Everybody, moaned about that one. He went to Philadelphia, didn't play no better than what he played here. He went to Chicago, didn't play no better than what he played here. His career he was down on that down slope of his career. And the GM and the head coach saw it. He knew it. He was a great player, but he was on the downside of his career. So they had to move him and they got to pick for it. Those are things that you have to do as a GM when your team gets older. You got to make those hard decisions. Keeping Byard another year wasn't going to change the fact that this was not a good team. It would just kept them in limbo.
Right. So I would say the early decisions were a lot tougher for Rand Carthon when he got there, and it was hard to just jump in there and be in lockstep with everybody because people disagreed for what direction to go in. And so for Gentry to say insulted everybody's intelligence, I don't think everybody was saying it's time to break this team down.
They were saying
they were saying keep Tannehill, keep Byard, keep Henry. Let's see if we can make one more run with Mike Vrabel and sneak a weak division title out.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts, your early impressions of Mike Borgonzi as Titans GM. 615-737-1025. The 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament benefiting Folds of Honor, presented by Gary Force Acura at Hermitage Golf Course, is on Thursday, May 29th. Sign up to play or sponsor at 615open.com.
That's it.
Tune in today to 102.5 The Game for Vanderbilt baseball as the Commodores face Alabama. Pregame begins at 5:45 and first pitch is at 6. Coverage is also available on the Game Nashville app and at thegamenashville.com. Willie, fill us in on what's going on with the Vandy boys right now.
Well, it's a big series. Alabama is a good team, and on any weekend, I would say 15, conservative, let's say 13 of the 16 teams. The one team that is extraordinarily historically bad is Missouri baseball. I don't know what happened over there, but they're getting crushed every weekend. I don't think they've won a league game. Vanderbilt, unfortunately, doesn't get to play them.
Man.
Alabama is a good team. Obviously, protecting your home field is very important. It's much harder to win on the road in the SEC than it is at home. So Vanderbilt was able to manage 1 out of 3 last weekend at Ole Miss. So this is a big weekend for them to flex a little bit here. Coming down the stretch of the regular season, they're on collision course in Knoxville with Tennessee. Is the final weekend of the regular season. So you want to rack up some wins here. And what Vanderbilt is trying to do is secure home field advantage in the regional. I think that's a reasonable goal. Be a host of a regional when the playoffs start.
So we are talking about Mike Borgonzi, and I want all of your early impressions of Mike Borgonzi at 615-737-1025. We're past free agency. We're past the draft. I know that he is going to be judged by wins and losses, but 2 of the major points of the GMing calendar, we'll say, free agency and the draft are behind us. Bob in Mount Juliet says, I think Borgonzi is, this is Jared from Spring Hill. Sorry, Bob in Mount Juliet. This is Jared from Spring Hill. I think Borgonzi is talking out of both ends, doing it the Kansas City way, but going to start Cam Ward and saying he wants picks, but turns down the best trade offer to get him more picks in the top 100. So I think he's flaky so far. And I don't think he's truly in charge, just a warm body with a Boston accent, keeping Chad Brinker happy. That's Jared from Spring Hill on our text line. Bob in Mount Juliet says, that team sucked because Rand signed Andre Dillard and drafted Peter Skoronski 11th overall and Tajay Spears, who wasn't going to play ahead of the King. Rand sucked. Just say it, D-Mace. He was awful. That's Bob at Mount Juliet.
I'm not going to say he was awful. He went and got Devondre Sweat. J.C. Latham seems to be a good player. So I mean, and I can go down the list with free agent guys that he brought in, and I can go down the list of the free agent guys that seem to not have worked at this point. The main one is trading a 3rd round pick for LeJarry Sneed, and that at this point hadn't worked because whatever injury he had, it has sidelined him. So listen, Rand doesn't have this job because the team didn't get better. But that doesn't mean that Rand wasn't set up, like that this whole thing was set up for someone to come in and be successful. But he didn't do the job the way he should have. And so I'm not going to make no excuse for that. Had he done a better job, he'd still be here, point blank. But I'm not going to sit here and think that he didn't bring in some guys that were contributors and guys that were good players on his team within the last couple of years either.
One thing that I like about what Mike Borgonzi has done, particularly in free agency, and we mentioned it with Tyler Lockett, is that the Titans have brought in players who are durable, who play every game. Xavier Woods, another player who spoke yesterday, if I recall correctly, played every single defensive snap. And that is not hyperbole. He played every single defensive snap for the Carolina Panthers last season. Dan Moore, I know that the Titans backed up the Brinks truck for Dan Moore, and you can argue about how many sacks he allowed, but he was on the field. Tyler Lockett's missed 3 games in 10 years. I think that is an important thing. Here's one thing that I think that Mike Borgonzi should probably not do as much. I was reading back through that Albert Breer article that we referenced at the start of the week about how the Titans landed on the decision to draft Cam Ward. And because of where Mike Borgonzi came from, and we've heard analysts, namely Louis Riddick and I believe Kevin Clark, in the draft process, comparing Cam Ward's some of his attributes to Patrick Mahomes. And there was a quote from Mike Borgonzi in the Albert Breer article, quote, "I'm not comparing him to Pat, but some of the stuff I saw with Pat, just in terms of his instincts, spatial awareness, arm talent, arm angles, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Pat." And I was careful to say it. Pat's a future Hall of Famer, and he's got a long way to go, meaning Cam Ward, before he ever reaches that level. But some of the stuff, just the instincts, spatial awareness, vision for the field, reminded me of Pat when I watched him. And although Mike Borgonzi started off that quote saying, "I am not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes," when you put Patrick Mahomes and Cam Ward in the same sentence, people are going to take that as he is comparing Cam Ward to Patrick Mahomes. The fact that Mike Borgonzi and the Titans did not take that reported trade offer from the Giants, they believe in Cam Ward that much. That would be the one thing that I would caution Mike Borgonzi. Maybe don't mention Patrick Mahomes and Cam Ward in the same sentence. Even if you say, "I'm not comparing him to Patrick Mahomes," it's a dangerous game because, we played the telephone game. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I read that quote and people are going to say, "Did you hear what Mike Borgonzi said about Cam Ward? He compared him to Patrick Mahomes." I just think you should probably be careful lumping those two in the same sentence.
But if that's what you see, that's what you say.
I
mean,
understand
if you
that.
see those things in him, and you just hope, like, having those traits doesn't mean you become that person. And I think people understand that, but they don't understand.
Things get lost in
Yeah.
translation.
So it's like I don't think he's. If it was just fluff, then I think he can get away from that quickly. If he's just trying to, blow smoke, I think he can get away from that comparison very quickly. But when you watch him, there are traits, there are things that we see or we've seen Patrick Mahomes do that Cam Ward is doing in college, where he did it at University of Miami. You could say that about a few quarterbacks, because they've watched Patrick Mahomes. And one of the main reasons, I think, is because he's a baseball player. And some of those throws, the sidearms, all this other stuff, that comes from being a baseball. That's normal to him. It's normal to Patrick Mahomes. It's normal to Cam Ward. It's normal to Kyler Murray, guys that have played baseball. So when you see that, the first thing your mind goes to is Patrick Mahomes. Not that you're comparing him, but you're saying, like, man, this dude got traits. Like, I see the the throws that he make, you know, and the ability to get out of the pocket and throw at an awkward position. I've seen that before, so it's okay for him to say that, I think.
There's a million scouts, evaluators, GMs that have done the same thing in every sport.
Yeah.
So whether you choose to do it your first year with your first pick, that is a question that I think you're asking, Adam, if we're evaluating Mike Borgonzi. But I'm willing to I'm waiting until you start playing games. We're going to find out sooner or later. You shouldn't be made or broken based on what you choose to say about Cam Ward. Because as you said, it's not like he was just building them up. This guy's now, we mentioned Vincent LeCavalier earlier in the show. What was the mistake that Tampa made when they first drafted him? He was 18 years old. They said, this is the next Michael Jordan. That's what the owner of Tampa Bay said. The next Michael Jordan. Now, Vinny LeCavalier would have been picked by the Predators if the Predators had won the coin flip, the lottery that year. So they picked it second. They traded up to pick second, picked David Legwan. Vinny LeCavalier was a really good player for a long time.
But not Michael Jordan.
That was the worst tag you could possibly give the guy. What the heck?
Mike Borgonzi,
now that's dumb. Mike Borgonzi,
has
what he
not
did,
done
that was not in the same
Yeah.
league is what that happened. With the same stratosphere.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts, early impressions of Mike Borgonzi as Titans GM. Let us know. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, what message did the Tennessee Titans send with their NFL draft selections? Some interesting comments that I want to get to next. 615-737-1025. Also a reminder that Ask D-Mace is at 12:30. So if you have questions for Derek, you can get them in on our text line right now at 615-737-1025. Nashville's best deal this week is Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic hot chicken joint. For a limited time, grab half off a $25 gift card at thegamenashville.com/deals. D. Mace Finken and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Remember, Ask D. Mace coming up at around 12:30. So if you have questions for Derek, you can get them in on our text line right now at 615-737-1025. The early bird gets the question in for Derek. So if you want to text us now, you can at 615-737-1025. Also, I want to make you weather aware that there is a severe thunderstorm on its way. I think it'll hit our area within the next hour. So just be weather aware if you are
And there's
on the
a
road.
couple waves of it as I looked, and you mentioned in the last segment the Vanderbilt baseball series with Alabama. There's going to be some storms I think they've got to dodge and play around. Of course, they have the turf at the Hawk, so they'll probably get them in there. But those of us that might be attending the games or some of the games might have to be ready for a little precip.
You gonna wear a
Poncho?
a poncho or a raincoat?
I
Or
go
just
with
a
the
hat,
raincoat.
just a
I've
hat.
got the raincoat.
Oh, you got the raincoat.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think I'll be.
okay.
This is what I would wear.
With a hood on it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
thought you were going to ask me if I was going to deck myself out in my old jersey or something because
You
it is
should.
it is Vanderbilt baseball alumni
You
weekend,
should. There you go, man.
so I might have to slide in there.
Get the old jersey out.
And make
It
it,
does- it
fit
doesn't
it
fit-
still
it
because
doesn't
you
fit
probably
very
was a little, you probably was a little ripped back then. Can you fit
It's a little tight. I feel a little tight.
it?
So just keep that in mind if you're out at the Vanderbilt game later. It's going to rain. And if you're on the roads, just be cognizant of it. We want you to be safe. So we know that during NFL draft season, teams lie to us, right? They mislead, they obfuscate. That's another big fancy word. But once the draft arrives, they have to tell the truth. So what messages do teams send once they finally had to put their money where their mouth was at the NFL draft? And that is a question that Robert Mays and Field Yates, Robert Mays of The Athletic, Field Yates of ESPN, that is the question that they set out to answer on the latest episode of The Athletic Football Show. So here is what Robert Mays and Field Yates said about what the Titans draft, what message it sent.
The message I think the Titans sent is we know we screwed up over the last couple years and we're sorry. If you look at what they did, they on a bunch of different levels, I think this is true, right? The quarterback thing, we screwed up. We misjudged the quarterback position over the last couple of years. We're going to fix that. That was obvious. We knew they were going to do that. But even some of the other things that they did. So you look back over the last 2 years, the Titans haven't had a third round pick in either of the last two drafts. Last year and then coming into this year's draft. The third round pick they gave up in 2024 was part of the Will Levis trade. And then coming into this year's draft, they didn't have a fourth or third round pick because they traded for L'Jarius Sneed last year. And among all the things that the Titans did last offseason, I think a lot of them were misguided. The amount of money they spent on free agents, but it was positional resources. Like, do we need a third round pick and a contract extension for L'Jarius Sneed based on where we currently are as a team? Probably not. And so I think the over aggressiveness that we saw from them over the last couple of years and them giving away picks, you saw them atone for that a little bit, like them moving back in the second round and then picking up a third round pick as part of that and then getting an additional fourth round pick somewhere along the way. I think this was, we know that we need to be responsible based on where we are in the process right now, and we're going to do that.
So that was Robert Mays, and Field Yates was there too, but that was Robert Mays. Now, I heard that clip, and I figured that Willie, as he's listening to this, might say, well, they didn't trade the number 1 overall pick. But what did you make of that analysis? I'm always fascinated by
Somebody from afar.
exactly. So what were your thoughts on Robert Mays' take on the message that the Titans draft sent?
I don't think he's far off for especially without getting into the weeds. But I think from a 50,000 foot view, that's a fair assessment of what they tried to do with this draft. I don't disagree with what he said. And these aren't the guys who made those decisions that led them into that point. other than Chad Brinker on some level, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen, this team is they're at a point right now where, and I said this earlier, where it's almost like a clean slate for this team. And they get an opportunity, or Borgonzi and Brinker, they get an opportunity to reshape this organization. I think that's why it was critical and pivotal for them to get their franchise quarterback. And they believe Cam Ward is that guy, because now what they're doing is they're reshaping this organization. They're trying to establish who they are as a front office with this draft. You look at some of the moves that they made, and obviously not trading away the number 1 pick, the moves they didn't make because they believe in Cam Ward. To me, it's just a reshaping or restarting of an organization. So anything that this group does moving forward is either going to set this organization up for success, or you're going to continue to labor in below mediocrity. But they made a statement, I believe, by choosing to keep the number 1 pick and where they believe they are headed, in the next couple of years.
Mike Sando of The Athletic did a story looking at every AFC draft class and getting NFL executives' take on each team's draft class. He did one for the AFC, one for the NFC. So in the AFC story, here is what Mike Sando wrote about the Titans. Quote, "The two teams picking in the top 5 with new GMs, Tennessee and Jacksonville, were rightfully excited about the players they selected. But when Titans GM Mike Borgonzi invoked Patrick Mahomes while discussing number 1 pick Cam Ward, and when Jaguars GM James Gladstone, a.k.a. Doogie Howser, talked about Travis Hunter possibly challenging the boundaries of the sport, some execs saw no upside in setting expectations so high. In the Titans case, Borgonzi was more measured than Gladstone, but both GMs are coming from places where elite head coaches got the most from the players their teams drafted. There's no Andy Reid in Tennessee, no Sean McVay in Jacksonville." One exec said, quote, "There are so many things Kansas City had that I do not think Tennessee has, and then it's not the same player. You have to be really disciplined and understand that the worst thing you can do is put a young quarterback in a bad situation." Sando writes, "That might be true, but how many times do GMs have their choice of quarterbacks in any one draft?" One exec says, "In the big picture, I think taking Cam Ward was a no-brainer for them, but if this was last year's draft, Ward probably would have been the 4th quarterback," another executive said, which is something we've heard quite a bit. So there was something else that Robert Mays and Field Yates discussed. He talked about specifically what the Titans did in the 4th round.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted Chimere Dike, Gunnar Helm, and Alec Ayomanor. And I had to get on Jared's case because he was butchering the pronunciation of Ayomanor. He was going Ayomanor, like Magnon from
Chris Mignon, yeah.
Right,
or Ezra Manuel. Vanderbilt has had back-to-back years with a different Mignon.
Back in the day, there was a radio host in DC when I was living there who thought my last name, which is Vingan, was pronounced Vignon, which rhymes.
Like
I like that.
as in filet Vignon.
And should we
Correct.
start calling him Vignon?
Please don't. But when I corrected him and I said, "I appreciate you making it sound fancier than it actually is, it's just Vingan," he ended up calling me Steak. That was the nickname that he gave me.
Because
You
you're well
went to
done.
Vignon to Vingan to Steak. Okay.
Yes. Shout out Danny Rouillet back in DC. But this is what Robert Mays said about what the Titans specifically did in the 4th round. Do we have that clip, David? We'll get to it. He'll get it. But nevertheless,
That's so diametrically opposed to Sando's take, right? Where he was talking about the 2 GMs. Like, for Jacksonville to jump in and give up what they gave up to get one player in Travis Hunter, that's bold, right? It goes against the Nobel Prize winner. So I'm going to keep. I don't remember his name, but he won the Nobel Prize, the 20-year study.
I told you,
But
we don't need
that's
those
the
people
bold
in this arena,
right.
Willie.
That was the bold move, though, and Travis Hunter is going to have to be even arguably even better than Cam Ward to justify what they gave up to move up and get him.
David has that clip. So this was Robert Mays talking about specifically what the Titans did in the 4th round.
But what they did in the 4th round with DK from Florida, Gunnar Helm from Texas, and Ayamanor from Stanford.
Yep.
What I love about that is they're such different players. And if you look at their pass catching group, we need some way to help the quarterback we just drafted first overall. Maybe we don't know the best path to that based on the resources we have. We're just going to try to volume shoot here. We're going to give him a bunch of different skill sets, and somehow, some way, hopefully on the other side with Calvin Ridley, this gives us a workable group of receivers, also with Tyler Lockett in the mix now.
Okay, so what I would say to that, I think it's sound thinking. These guys, they eat up every player in the draft. They've done all the research on these guys. I'm much more macro. I'm looking at the track record, right? What would be a good batting average? So they have these 3 offensive players that hopefully will be lined up alongside of Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, long term, if one of them ends up being really good out of the 3, that's a pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good, right? Because everybody else is going to. A lot of people, not everybody else. Some people are going to say they could have gone with the skill guy earlier, right? They could have gone in, tried to get what's the guy? Luther Burton in the 2nd round. He was there. They could have taken him. You know, the people will bring that up if Burton does well.
Oh, of course,
right?
they will.
But I like the idea, but the reality is they're not likely to go 3 for 3, and all 3 of these guys end up being really good players for them. I'd love to see it, but it's against you have to hope you get some hits out of this draft as a whole. It needs to be a good draft. That would really help get some momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 for 3, I would take 2 for 3 and never even look at whatever happens to the 3rd guy.
And I guess you could throw, if you want to, you could throw Xavier Restrepo in there if you want. I mean, he's
As
an
the 4th guy.
undrafted.
Yeah.
He's an undrafted.
He's going to
free
get more
agent.
attention than most
Right.
undrafted free agents.
Because
Absolutely.
he played with Cam.
Yes.
I mean, what he's saying, I guess in theory, like Willie said, okay, but I don't think you can approach a young guy like that. We don't know what we have, so let's just throw all these pieces and just throw it out there and see what works. No, offenses don't work that way. I don't think coordinators work that way. They see their offense, they see their the potential that the offense has. They see the personnel, and they find out how can we now either get the most out of these guys or tailor this offense to these particular players. So what you're saying is you're taking player over scheme. That's basically what he's saying, which means if that's the case, then your scheme means nothing. Because if you say, well, he's just trying to throw guys out there, no, we got a scheme that we want to run. And I do say this. What I found is they got pass catchers. They got guys that are that are good pass catchers, that are reliable pass catchers. You look at the tight end. He's a Gunnar.
Gunnar Helm.
Yeah, Gunnar Helm. Good tight end, good hands. Look at DK. Good hands, catches the ball. Ayamanor. Good hands, catches the ball. None of them, presents this one little like elite thing, but they all catch the ball very well, and they all can play, either inside or outside. Now DK is more inside, and Ayamanor is more outside. But the thing is, you're adding those pieces without the speed. I know he ran a 4.5, but a 4.4, 4.3, whatever it was, but it doesn't look like that on film. So they got to try to find a way to condense his offense a little bit and allow these guys to find a role within that offense, but you ain't changing your offense.
The way I heard it, and I grant you that I may have misheard it, but the way I heard it was that the Titans drafted receivers of varying skill sets to determine which one best fits with Cam Ward. That's how I heard it. I just want to make sure that you and I are on
you're
the
right.
same wavelength.
They made that point, and that's an interesting theory. I haven't watched these 3 guys close enough to really see all that. D-Mace has. I like that idea. The reality is, look, whatever works. I think I'm emphasizing more that they found a way to get a few more tosses at the dartboard, which is what I think they need. The more times you have a chance to have somebody succeed, the more times you're going to hit.
Yeah, that is indeed the case, and it could be just that with these three guys, and then obviously Xavier Restrepo when they eventually sign him. I don't think they've signed him yet.
At least it's not official.
Yeah, it's not official yet. So he's going to be added in the mix. But what I just think you look at your offense, because you drafted the quarterback because you felt that he can excel in this offense that you're running. Now you're going to bring him along slowly, but what you're doing is you're just adding good pass catchers. That's all you want for a young quarterback. Is yes, the ideal thing is to have the guy that stretches the field, the guy that's quick in the middle, and then the other guy on the other side that can both go down the field but get you the rugged yardage, in between the hashes and stuff like that. Yeah, but typically you're just trying to find people that are going to go out there and do what you're asking them to do, and go out there and be a target, a reliable target for the quarterback. Because the last thing a young quarterback needs is a guy's dropping a bunch of footballs. And I'm gonna say this, Calvin Ridley, you can't have a season like you did last year catching the football. You can't. You're a much better receiver than that. And with a young quarterback, those passes, those gimmies that you dropped last year, you can't have them, because that takes away that trust that I have in you as a young quarterback. You got to gain that trust. So I would put that on him. Like, dude, you got to take initiative to make sure you're not that guy that is losing trust in a quarterback.
Let me ask you this, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
Which pass catcher do you think that Cam Ward is going to lean on the most? Calvin Ridley, who is his number one receiver in stature. He was the number one receiver on this team this past season. Someone like Tyler Lockett, or even someone like Gunnar Helm. We don't know what Gunnar Helm's role is going to be. I know that Jared, among others, has stressed the importance of a young quarterback having that rock-solid tight end. Chig is still there. Just going to put it out there. But Gunnar Helm had 60 catches, 7 touchdowns last season for Texas. I believe he was their leading receiver, at least in terms of receptions, if I'm not mistaken. Like, which player do you think Cam Ward will ultimately lean on most?
Well, outside of Calvin Ridley, I think it's going to be the tight ends. Honestly, let's say this: anybody that's a inside receiver, a slot receiver, or a tight end flex out, that's going to end up being his main guy, I believe. I think that Brian Callahan wants this offense to be multiple, but with a young quarterback, he wants to be able. There's a reason why they drafted Gunnar Helm. Big target, fluid, can run, really good hands. He's a guy that Cam can get the ball to quickly. Tyler Lockett, he's a guy that Cam can get the ball to very quickly. Chig, he's a guy that they can get the ball to and more than likely that's going to be the matchup. That's going to be the matchup that's going to be advantageous for the Titans.
I thought Teron made a good point this morning on Robbie and Rex Road. He said, if you can get to the off, he used the word restricted. Last couple of years, I think, especially because of the woes of the offensive line, and Levis had something to do with it last year, the way he holds the ball, right? And the period of time he played his rookie year. But they were restricted in what they could call. If they could run, it's hard to judge Brian Callahan's offense because sometimes you're like, I'd like to see what this looks like with really good personnel where you could call everything you want to call. He clearly was restricted in what he could call. If Ward and this group of people, the offensive line takes a step forward, can at least run the offense that they envision, that's a good sign on a number of fronts.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on the Titans draft class. Robert Mays' comments on the Athletic Football Show about what message the Titans draft sent But coming up next, it's time to ask D-May. So call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Mostly nothing is off limits. So if you have a question for Derek, we already have a couple. You can get them in now. You can call us. You can text us. 615-737-1025. Join Big Joe and 1025 The Game from 10 a.m. to noon at Coleman Tractor of Nashville tomorrow for Kubota Orange Days. There will be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing available. Sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demos, deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's at the Coleman Tractor of Nashville, located at 7221 Whites Creek Pike in Jolton tomorrow.
He played 15 years in the NFL.
Quick throw. Touchdown, Derek Mason.
He had over 12,000 receiving yards.
Midfield, and there he goes. 80 yards for the touchdown.
And now you can ask him anything. Have a question about football or life? Now's your time to ask D-Mace.
We'll welcome you in.
Now, D-Mace on 102.5 and 106.3 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
It's time for Ask D-Mace on D-Mace, Vingan and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Call us, text us, 615-737-1025. Get your questions in for Derek, and I thought we should start on this one. Wes in Clarksville on our text line says, Derek, if your daughter decided to bring a new date over to the house for dinner and you didn't know who it was, then she shows up with Bill Belichick, what would your reaction be?
Oh, I think we sort of covered this
Yeah.
earlier in the week, but,
But
do
why
tell.
not do it again?
Yeah.
Shut the door in his face. Seriously, I would shut the door in
I
his
mean,
face.
you two have you guys have already talked smack
Yeah.
against. I mean, we
I
played the
shut the
clip
door.
on the
I would
show.
shut the door right in both of their faces. Or if she's at the house already and he showed up, I would shut the door in his face, and there would be no questions asked. You wouldn't come in my house. That's just me. And hey, listen, some parents are different from me.
Can you
But
just
babe,
imagine the setup,
a
though? Like,
72-year-old man show up at my house and my daughter's 20 and her age? No, that ain't flying. No, nah, brother.
let's just do a quick, like, Dad, I want to bring this guy over. I've met him. He seems like a nice guy. His name is Bill. I want to introduce him to you.
First,
A
she
little
ain't
bit
gonna
older.
even be able to get that far because I am going to act like grill her, and she'll tell you I am going to ask those like.
Yes.
So
There's
she's
gonna
gonna
be a
eventually,
pre-screen, a
she's gonna
pre-screen.
eventually have to tell me the age.
So he's not going to get to the door.
He's not going to even get to the door. He's not even He's not going to even put my address into his cell phone to get directions. He's not going to be able to do that because the minute that she says and he said, "Yep, that's enough." He ain't never come to my house.
We're going into the Bat Cave. The
You ain't coming to my house,
coordinates to the Bat Cave will not be given out.
No,
Bill cannot find
nah,
D-Mace's
any
house.
man. No, they give me the ick, man. That's all I gotta say. That gives me the ick. So no, who's that? Adam?
That was Wes in
Oh,
Clarksville.
Wes. It's Wes and Adam.
Yeah,
my fault, Wes.
That was Wes in Clarksville. Let's go to Wes in
Hermitage.
Hermitage.
Oh, okay.
From west to west. Wes in Hermitage on our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Wes, please go ahead.
Willie, D-Mace, Steak, how we doing today?
What's going on?
Steak is catching
Steak,
on.
okay.
Steak is
Filet.
catching on.
You know, Vignon, look, man, you really hurt Morgan Wallen's feelings today.
I think he'll survive.
Yeah, he'll be all right.
Yeah, what's worse, being called Steak or Meatloaf?
Speaking of musical artists,
I mean, Meatloaf did make a lot of money,
Yeah.
and Devondre Sweat seems to be doing okay. His nickname is also Meatloaf.
yeah, true.
So I think the meatloafs
Oh,
are
man.
winning.
Well, I got a dad joke for you because it's been a while, and it's probably time for me. I'm due for one, so.
Come on, you got to be more enthused, man. Come on, Wes.
Well, you know what? If you're excited about my dad joke, then you know what? I'm
Let's go.
excited too.
All right.
What do you get when you combine an elephant and a well?
An elephant and a well. Oh, I don't know. Elf.
Something
LOL.
very heavy.
Swimming trunks.
Okay,
Okay, it's not bad.
that's a good
Not
one.
bad.
See, you brought it. You
Oh,
brought it.
man.
You brought
It's
the
about-
energy, man.
Nice.
Yeah, man. My question for you, D-Mace, is this. I always try to center it around Jared for some reason. Oh, my God, I hate that guy so much. I really don't. He's a great dude.
He's fine.
What does Cam Ward need to do his first season as a quarterback of the Titans in order to get Jared a little excited that he might be good for this franchise? Happy Friday, guys.
Thanks for the call, Wes.
Jared already said, didn't he say win a Super Bowl or something to justify the pick?
Well,
I don't know.
The
But
immediate,
I know the
the
immediate. I know.
immediate
I was just playing.
reaction,
Yes.
the mini meltdown, as I
Yes.
called it, because it wasn't a full-blown
No, it
Jared
wasn't.
meltdown like when they drafted J.C. Latham and
Or
he
Peter
said that
Skoronski.
when he said, well, I remember Latham specifically because his immediate reaction is, I can't wait for Rand Carthon to be fired so I can be the grand marshal of that parade. But he said he better be Patrick Mahomes. That was his instant mini meltdown.
Uh-huh.
But How about a more
Measured.
measured,
Well, okay, let me say
which
this.
is not a word that
Yes.
has ever been used to describe
Exactly.
Jerry.
Correct.
So if you're just talking about the normal person, what would the normal person consider, good for a first year quarterback coming in, looking at the roster that they have? I don't know, Wes, if it's more so about the record than it is about the development of the team and of the quarterback, because I think if you had development in a quarterback, you had development in the team, because you believe you drafted him more overall that he can lift, he can lift all the boats around him. So if he's getting better, if he's developing, just like you saw with Jay Daniels, just like you saw with CJ Stroud, those guys, as they started to develop within that offense, they started to unlock everybody else within that offense. And I think that's what, again, I'm not looking at so much of the record than I am looking at how is that team developing. And you hope the byproduct of that team developing, they have a good record. I picture this team, Wes, starting off slow, which it may drive Jared crazy. But then I think toward the middle of the season, they're going to start picking it up. And I think they're going to go on a run late in the season, not a run to make the playoffs, but a run that may end up, yielding them 8 wins for the season. I say that because I think that's how the quarterback's development is going to go. And then he's also going to be able to lift those other guys up and make the team better as they start to go. So as far as record-wise, if you want like a definitive number, I think anything 6 wins, frankly, anything over last year, but I would say 6 wins may keep a normal person, should keep a normal person at bay. But
we're talking about the unreachable star.
Yes, Jared, it may take 10 wins. Okay.
I believe the over-under is 5.5, so 6
Yeah.
would be the over.
Mhm.
Joey from Bellevue says, after sitting in traffic before and after seeing Metallica, my question for Derek is this. You're going on a trip to a concert and you're stuck in traffic for several hours. If you had 3 passengers in the car, who are the 3 from the 1025 family you'd want to be stuck in traffic
I
with?
was about to say the 3. I was about to say to my son, my daughter, and probably my good friend.
Nope, you're
But-
stuck with this bunch.
Yeah, I'm stuck with this bunch. Okay, let me see.
Sorry.
3 people. I would have I'm biased. The 3
doesn't
right
matter.
here.
What's the event? It doesn't.
Yeah,
it
the
doesn't
3 right
specify.
here.
Doesn't matter.
It's not a concert, a game, a movie.
Joey says you're going on a trip. It says, or just a concert. So
You're
I guess
kinda
it doesn't
stuck in
matter.
traffic.
You're stuck in
Yeah.
traffic on your way somewhere.
Okay. Man, that'd be tough. But it just all depends on how I was going. I'll take my crew right here. But then if I couldn't take my crew, then
Okay, so let's talk outside of this.
yeah,
show.
outside of the show.
You got to pick from the rest of the team.
So your choices
Nobody in
are,
this room.
Your choices are Rex Road,
Uh-huh.
Robbie, Ian,
Uh-huh.
Big Joe, Chase, Frazier,
Ooh.
Jared, and Reed.
One, I would take Frazier because if anything happens to the car, anything else, Frazier would know what
That's
to
a
do.
great call.
If
Frazier
you-
would know
if
what to
you
do.
And I feel
blow
like
a
Nick
tire-
gives good conversation.
Yeah, Nick
he's
gives
a good
good
conversation. Yeah,
he's
he's
one
going
of
to
those
keep the
guys, yeah.
conversation.
He's one of those
upbeat.
guys, if
Yeah.
it goes like silent, he'd just say something, it'll
Yeah.
start up a whole new conversation.
I think that's a good first round draft.
I see Frazier as the passenger who, let's say you have some sort of car malfunction and you're stranded and you have to camp out for the night. He knows how to make the fire by rubbing the sticks together, and he can make a shelter for all of you. So
Hey, I would take Frazier. Frazier would be
Yeah.
my number 1 pick.
Okay.
And then I would go with Chase.
okay,
And then God, this is a tough one. Said 3 people.
yes. So you need one more.
Ah, man, it would be between if we're going out of town. See, I would keep Big Joe if we're staying in town because Big Joe knows everything around here. I keep Big Joe if we're going out of town. Man, I made Jared or Rex Road. Gosh,
Well, let me ask you this
pick
question.
Rex Road because he and I can talk like
Old heads.
old heads. Yeah,
Yes.
we old heads. We can talk about Michigan State days and all that other stuff.
Let
So,
me ask
yeah.
you this one question: when you are on a road trip,
Uh-huh.
who is responsible for the music selection?
I am if I'm driving.
Okay, so the driver
Okay.
is
The driver,
responsible.
yes.
That's fair.
Jared would be the one switching every song. Like, nope, No,
No, he couldn't touch. No, he couldn't
nope.
touch the radio. He couldn't touch it.
I absolutely see that.
He couldn't touch the radio. No, the driver.
I don't have a feel
is in
for Jared's
control.
music.
I have
interests.
this is legitimate. I have absolutely no read on what kind of music Jared
Yeah,
listens to.
I thought the
have
same thing.
I have zero.
That's a good
clue.
question.
Does he listen to music?
I think so. Doesn't everybody?
Yeah, you would
That-
think.
that-
but
that's a good
Jared's not
question.
everybody.
For Jared, yeah.
I
He's
feel like
not
Jared,
everybody.
I feel like Jared would put on Sirius. Like if we're on
There you
this
go.
road trip,
Yeah.
so Jack,
You
he'd
would
put
be
on
listening
Sirius.
to Mad Dog Radio
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
4 hours.
Yeah, we listen to Mad Dog Radio.
He'd
for
be
that.
no.
I'm not
This
doing.
is what he would do. He said, "Let's pull up this classic episode of Jared and the GM from 2019. Let's listen to this."
Tell me guys
for
how
4
what you guys
hours.
think of what I said in this take right
Yes.
here.
No, Jared, if you're listening, because I know you're on the road to Atlanta right now, I have no idea what kind of music taste you have, brother.
Yeah, me
I
neither.
legitimately don't know, and I want to know. But we'll get back to some of your questions at 615-737-1025. A lot of questions to get to at 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025, 1063, the game. D. Mace Vingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. Before we get back to your questions for Derek, we do have some responses. Because remember, before the break, we all said that we have absolutely no read on what kind of music Jared Stillman listens to. Joel on our text line says, Adam, we'll tell you all you need to know about Stillman's musical taste. He went to the Backstreet Boys concert when they last came to Bridgestone. Unbelievable.
Hey, some people still love
One
the Black
texter
Backstreet
said,
Boys.
one texter said, Jared has said on the air before that he doesn't listen to music. Serial killer trait. Just saying.
They could have a point there. They may just have a point.
A couple of texters piggybacking off of the question from Joel. From Joey from Bellevue about the car trip and who you would have in the car. Viking Matt says, I want Jared and Rexford in the backseat together and Chase as the mediator / ref. All I'm telling you is that I don't know if the two of you have ever made this idle threat. I'm going to turn the car around. If you don't behave, we're turning around, which I don't know if anyone has actually ever turned the car around. But Jared and Joe, I would absolutely turn the car around.
I may not.
Have either of you ever said that in a car on a car
Oh,
ride?
of
with
course
yourself?
I've said
Have you
that,
actually ever turned the car around?
I
Yes.
stopped. I've
We did one time. One
You
time.
did turn the car around?
Yeah, and I was really upset.
It wasn't
Are you
Willie's
blaming your wife? Are you
decision.
blaming your wife?
No, we had to stick together. We
You
had
had
to
to
stick
do
with
it.
it. We put it out there. Now I didn't
make the call. Yes.
but I had to go with the call. I had to honor the call. What do they say on the playground? Respect the call. Respect the call. When you're playing pickup ball.
Now,
somebody-
where were you going?
Well, see, this is the sad part for me. We were in my hometown of Orlando, Florida. We had a vacation going. The kids were really young, but they were just old enough to appreciate Disney World and all those places. So we were going to the different parks. You know, we had like a week long. On this day, we're going to the Magic Kingdom. On this day, we're going to Epcot Center. Then we're going to go to Universal Studios. All these things. We had it all mapped out. The day we were going to go to Wet and Wild. I had so many great fun times as taking people to Wet and Wild. I'm like, hey, I can take the kids to Wet and Wild. This is great. We're going to go to the water slides and everything. And they got in just a typical brother-sister spat, and they wouldn't cool it. And so we put the threat out there. If you guys don't cool it right now, we're not going.
Oh, no.
We're not going to go.
Hold on. No, before Willie said this, listen, I know, I can just picture Willie. He's saying it, but he really don't believe it. He's like, just stop, please, just stop.
Please
stop.
don't do it. Please
But
don't put that
Aaron,
out
she
there.
was serious about it.
Put it out there.
Willie was like,
I don't know if
"It's not gonna
secretly
do
she
it."
didn't really want to go to Wet and Wild or
Uh-huh.
something, but
Okay. We have. Before we get
I was heartbroken.
before we get to Doug,
I haven't been back to Wet and Wild since.
before we get to Doug from Nashville on our phone line, Jared has chimed in
With
Okay.
some
his
musical
music
taste. Okay.
Okay,
Let-
Jared,
DJ David, get ready for some of this stuff.
Jared, I just want to let you know that I'm a little embarrassed for you to read this on the air.
Oh, wow.
He says, I listened to Pop 2K, which is a channel on Sirius XM.
Yeah.
Music from 2000 through 2010. So think Hoobastank or Lil Wayne.
So he's across the gambit, huh?
Hoobastank. A little Crawling in the Dark, Jared? That was a banger back in whatever year that song
So
came
he
out.
really doesn't have like favorite. He's just listened to whatever in that era.
I just imagine Jared cranking up The Reason by Hoobastank and just belting his guts out. Jared, I'm sorry, buddy.
Hoobastank.
Doug is in Nashville on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHunting.com. Doug, thank you for
Yikes.
waiting. Please go ahead.
Hey, fellas, I would say that Jared would listen to AM music.
Hmm.
It's
No-
possible.
no
It's not
commercials.
much. Yeah,
No
it's not
commercials.
much.
But I've got a wide receiver question,
Mhm.
and it's about my son.
Okay.
Plays, NAIA football, and the old quarterback's gone, didn't have a rifle.
Mhm.
New quarterback steps in from the portal, and he got a cannon. I noticed my son's hands drifting every time he catches the ball because it comes in hot. Of course, I have routine things that I taught him back in the day to make his hands strong. Of course, what does dad know? So I always did the daddy trick. I had someone else to reach out and tell him the things that I knew would work. I let him hear from another voice, old daddy trick. My question to D-Mason, when you know that the quarterback has a strong gun and the hands are not sitting there steady, what do you recommend to make them stronger? Or do you know of a YouTube, because that's where kids are today, of a guy that's putting out some good footage? Or third, ready to open up a school so I can sign him up and put him in?
Good call, Doug.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it.
Tips of when a guy just throws rockets.
Yeah,
and it's
listen,
not the easiest ball to catch.
This was my, because fortunately enough for me, but probably unfortunately too, I've had like from Jim Miller, who had a rifle for a right arm, to Tony Banks, who had a rifle for a right arm, to Steve McNair, who had a rifle for a right arm, and then Joe Flacco. So I've always played with quarterbacks that were known for a strong arm. And I remember going with Tony Banks my junior year in college. And he had just got there from JUCO. And this is my first time throwing to him. And I didn't know like how fast the ball was going to come in. He has this like long wind up, kind of like Randall Cunningham. And boy, I ran a slant. He threw that thing so hard, it went straight through my hands and hit my mouth and chipped the tooth. I said, okay, let me get myself on this jug machine and let me wear a helmet the next time I come out here and decide to just play around and throw the football with this guy. So for me, with any quarterback, a strong arm, it don't matter. Get on that jug machine as much as you can and crank it up, to a speed that you can handle. That will help, that will help your eyes, your eyeball hand coordination. That will help strengthen up your hands. And then there are things you can do in a weight room with these, these grippers that they use that can tighten up or strengthen your grip, your forearm and stuff like that.
So you spent time doing that, strengthening your hands?
Strengthening your hands, but I spent a lot of time on a jug machine, just catching it from all angles, catching it at certain speeds, catching it with one hand, stuff like that. Because it's not only your hands, you're getting your eyes trained to the speed as well.
Matthew in Nashville says, Derek, any advice on how to get over your fears of rejection to ask out the girl you have a crush on?
Just ask. That's all.
I wish it was that easy for me.
I know. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying that, but I mean, I guess my thing would be just to strike up a lighthearted conversation. Try striking up a lighthearted conversation. If you see the person or if you are in the vicinity of this person, a lot. Find a way to strike up a conversation. And I think you can feel if somebody's sort of feeling you or not. I mean, you may not have to even say anything, you may not have to, because if she's not feeling it, you don't have to ask. You don't have to put yourself out there if you're a little scared. But if you see the conversation going well, and she's feeling, you're feeling the connection, she's feeling it, you would tell, then you ask her out, man. But you're asking the wrong guy, man. I haven't been good at relationships.
Here's my tip. Never try.
No, you gotta try, man. You gotta try, man.
I'm kidding.
I'm kidding. And I've been there before where, in my younger days where you're, hesitant to talk to, a female. And then you're always like, man, I wish I would have said something. So if you like this person, strike up a conversation in some way. Maybe do it in a funny way. I don't know. But, if you never ask, you never know.
It's always interesting to hear the stories of how people met. If I recall the story that my parents told me, it was my mom was working on an assignment with one of my dad's roommates, and she came by their apartment or dorm or whatever to meet up with that roommate to do the work. And my dad opened the door, and I think he had like a cotton ball in his nose because he got a bloody nose playing intramural floor hockey or something like that. And they struck up a conversation. Maybe that's where the hockey thing came from. I don't know.
This reminds me of Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
Yes.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Back to the Future, man. Say if your dad, would have, fell on the other side of the door and then the roommate came walking
There's
up.
going to be a picture of me fading.
Yeah.
out of all of my baby pictures. Is that what's going to happen? Isn't that what happened? In the
Yeah,
movie?
that happened.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't seen Back to the Future
I
in a
love
minute.
that movie.
Jared, who must be listening very intently, his advice is shoot or shoot.
Hey, I feel you.
Okay.
If you're a shooter, brother, shoot. Take that 3. Or take the 2.
You know what?
Or you go to the free throw line. You go to the free throw line, make at least one of them.
Right.
You know, hey.
People don't have an appreciation for mid-range game
No,
anymore.
but don't try to shoot a full court shot. Don't try it.
Remember Brad
try it.
Miller? Remember the basketball player Brad
Oh,
Miller?
yeah.
He was my guy. Those elbow jumpers, that's where I was. when I
If
was
you,
playing
if you know
basketball.
that, if you know that's your game, the elbow jump shot, then take it all day.
What about
every
you,
day.
Willie? What was your game?
My figurative game.
You
I
take
needed-
it any way you want to.
I
On the
needed-
bench.
Hold on, Willie was like, what you say?
I
did leave it unclear.
I was going back to my days in the Winter Park High School, shooting
Yeah, okay.
shooting from the elbows. I needed an icebreaker. I kind of needed that. I needed somebody to kind of pave
the
the way,
intermediate.
get something started.
Willie is absolutely
Start up the conversation. Then I could slide in there.
Oh, you know,
I was not a good
you know who
initiator.
you were like. You know who you. I pictured. Has anybody ever, and listeners, the 5 Heartbeats? Have anybody ever seen the 5 Heartbeats?
I've heard of that movie. I've not seen it.
I have not.
The 2 of the group members, they were brothers. So one of them, if one wanted to talk to a girl, the other one would go talk to the girl. He would play shy brother role. So
Yeah.
the brother would go talk to the girl, and the other brother would be sitting at the table, and he'll go over there. Yeah, hey, how you doing, my brother?
Right.
He, look at him. He looks.
So he'd break the
dopey.
ice for him.
Yeah, he'd break.
I
And then
needed
the
that.
brother come
That's what I
over
needed.
there and then start talking.
It's kind of like in How I Met Your Mother. He goes, "Have you met Ted?"
Yeah, see, there
Just
you
like
go.
The-
Bring him on
I
in.
imagine Willie in his younger days walking up to a young woman and saying, "Excuse me, I have a question. How much does a polar bear weigh?" Enough to break the ice. Hi, I'm Willie. 615.
I could never do that. I could never do that.
615. I was never that smooth when they actually tried that. 615-737-1025. You know what? We've had such great participation, and we're getting more texts.
Bonus time.
Bonus segment of Ask D-Mace coming up. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace Finnegan and Donick 1025, 1063 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership where the buzz is always about great service. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. We're going to pivot. We're going to do a bonus segment of Ask D. Mace because we have so many texts
Bring it on.
that we want to make sure that you all are heard. And before we get there, just know that severe thunderstorm we were talking about, it's getting closer to town, it looks like. So if you're out and about, just be weather aware. I think some strong storms are heading in our direction. So just be aware of that. We want you to be safe. All right, Derek, one texter says, who do you relate to more? Tyrese Halliburton's father or Anthony Edwards taking a victory lap in LA after the Timberwolves eliminated the Lakers?
I'm down with that, man. I'm telling you, I would be that guy strutting around the stadium.
So in case you missed it, after the Timberwolves eliminated the Lakers in 5, right? It wasn't Lakers in 5.
Lakers in 5.
It was T-Wolves in 5. Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves star player,
The Ant-Man.
was wandering the streets of LA. Now, if you've never been to Crypto.com Arena, which was previously known as Staples Center,
Yes.
there is a huge entertainment complex that surrounds that arena. It's called LA Live. There's restaurants and bars and a movie theater, things like that. So Anthony Edwards is being filmed walking around the perimeter, basically.
He's not just walking.
He's strutting.
Strutting.
Yes. John Travolta and Saturday Night Fever strutting. Talking all kinds of smack, which we
And
can't play on
he's
the
got
air.
his buddies
Right.
flanking him
Uh-huh.
on each side, and they're all just kind of looking around. It's just a great look.
Right. We can't play it on the air because it's inappropriate. There are not enough dump buttons to play what he said. But
It would just sound like beep, 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 beep.
right. It would sound
Lakers
like
Lakers in 5. No. Then Lakers in 7. No.
that was part of what he said.
Yes.
And then Tyrese Halliburton's father he's banned. He's banned.
Is he just banned from the remainder of the playoffs or
Yes.
next season?
So the
too?
story on ESPN, according to Shams Charania, after conversations with the Pacers front office, Tyrese Halliburton's father, John Halliburton, will not attend the team's home and road games for the foreseeable future. It was a decision made by the team's front office, and John Halliburton was understanding and accepted the decision. The move comes after John Halliburton and Milwaukee Bucks forward Giannis Antetokounmpo got into a heated confrontation following Game 5 of the team's first-round playoff series Tuesday, spurred by what Antetokounmpo called a disrespectful exchange on the floor. First of all, if you've got the big ones to get in Giannis Antetokounmpo's grill, I mean, more power
This is
to you.
on the court.
Yes.
This is right in the middle of the court.
Yeah, it was. I saw because I was watching the game and I saw it. And then, Giannis walks over and it was almost like he walked over in a combative manner, but then it was like he was just saying something to him. And as they parted ways, it seemed like he was just sort of saying, "Love you." And it didn't seem like Giannis, once he got over there, it seemed like he was trying to talk through whatever was going on. And they're probably, and the dad probably realized what he did. Like, I shouldn't have did that. So Giannis was, when he came over there, and I'm sure the dad probably apologized.
He was very
right then and there.
apologetic.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was right then and there,
But it seemed like he
eventually,
did.
Within a day, the next day, the apology was already out there
Yeah.
for sure. So it might have been later that night. But there was a moment where there was kind of a death stare from Giannis to the dad. And then after the game, Giannis basically said he didn't appreciate it. He says, I believe in being humble in victory. There's a lot of win and talk bleep that's going on. And I would say that is something that's happening right now a lot in the NBA across the board. And the Ant-Man would be an example.
But it's not just
win
just
and
the
talk
NBA. Yeah.
trash.
It's not just the NBA. I think it's sports in general, where the players are now trolling one another. But what has happened now, and it's unfortunate, that it's spilled outside of the player realm. It's gotten into family members. It's gotten
Social
into
media.
So it's
the
like
Timberwolves' main teams.
were trolling.
They went one after
Yeah.
another, just destroyed the Lakers.
So I don't mind the trolling from like those that are participating in it. I don't mind the trolling back and forth. If a player
Yeah.
talking trash to another player, that I don't mind. But where it starts to where I start to break away from it is when family members, friends start getting into the trolling thing. It's like, no, because then that causes more conflict than anything. They expect me to troll because they would probably do it to me. But I don't expect their parent or their brother or their girlfriend or wife to come at me on a court. Or no, then you just don't do that. Like, people need to understand it's them that are dribbling the ball, whether it's man or girl, man or woman. It's them that are throwing the football. It is them that is shooting the hockey puck. It is them that is doing all this, not you. So when you start to interject yourself, you just mess up the whole thing.
The whole dad moment, like that's one of the worst dad moments that I can remember. But of course, not on that stage. But I think we've all seen some dad moments where like cringy. I have definitely had a couple of times. I've never gone to that extreme on the court or anything like that, but yelling at a ref or something like that, I've had to check myself, and then after the game, going, I need to take it down a notch. That was stupid.
I've done it twice, one for my son and one for my niece. But it was done in the manner that I waited. Like for my son, I think it was 5th grade, 6th grade, somewhere in that, and it was 6th grade because he was playing on one of the teams, football team. I think it was the 6th grade, 7th grade team, one of the two. And I had just been watching the game. I'm just watching everything. I didn't say anything to anybody else. Everybody else around complaining. I just watched. And then after everything was over with, I politely went down there like a parent would do. And I talked to the head coach. Now, it didn't end up like a great talk. It wasn't no yelling and screaming, but it didn't end up, it didn't start a great talk and it didn't end a great talk. But I did it in a manner where it was away from everybody else.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to voice my opinion. And along with the opinions of a lot of the other parents that were saying something. So, but I did it in a way where I didn't try to upstage the coach. I went to him and I just had a talk with him. And I did it with my niece. Now that one was a little different. That was a little different because, and I think I had every right to do what I did because my niece, she's a very good basketball player. Lennon, she's a very good basketball player. And she's young, she's 8, 9. I think at the time she was 8. She may have been 8. And she was out there giving it her all, playing hard and everything else. And she was guarding an individual because she plays defense good. She scores good too. Well, but she was playing tough defense on the girl, which, okay, this is how she plays. She plays tough defense because she gives it her all. And she fouled the girl. And it was like, okay, you fouled. But then her own coach yelled and screamed at her, like in front of everybody. Yelled and screamed at her. Get over here. And her dad wasn't there. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking, like, as a dad, like, I wouldn't want that. Like, don't embarrass a child. I don't care who child it was. Don't embarrass a child where they're crying now. They're on the bench crying. 8 years old. So I went over there first to calm her down, but then to talk to him like, you embarrassed her. Now I'm going to embarrass you. Because that's one, I don't care if it's my child. Now, if it's my child, you are really embarrassed. But I don't care if it's my child or somebody else's child. If that parent's not there, I did it before at a football game, at a football practice, where the parent wasn't there and the head coach was berating the little kid. I'm talking about berating him. And the little kid was and he was crying, just sitting there like, coach, he just kept going. So I went down there like, dude, these kids, they're kids. They're not 19, 18, 17. This is a 7, 8-year-old kid. You're talking to him like he's a grown-up. Don't do that. Now, I didn't mind doing that because now I'm protecting this kid. And you know what? He came to me afterwards and he said, you know what? I'm sorry. You are exactly right. So those are the two times that I had to do it.
The Anthony Edwards situation. at the beginning of the show, we talked about Tyler Lockett, and Tyler Lockett said he was at the 2008 divisional round playoff game between the Titans and Ravens, which the Ravens won 13-10, including on the touchdown, 48 yards from Derek Mason. Derek Mason back in 2008. Are you strutting up Broadway after that game?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm strutting up. Oh, number one team in AFC.
Taking down the number one seed.
Number one seed, first round bye. First round bye. You know, people talk about y'all going to Super Bowl. Nope. I'm strutting all around Nissan. But nah,
Broadway was a little different back then.
Nissan, Broadway, but nah.
It was coming around.
I would have did that to like Pittsburgh. I wouldn't have did it to Tennessee because I played here. I wouldn't do it to them. But Pittsburgh, oh yeah. I would have strutted around that
victory
stadium.
lap.
Oh man. Boy, probably talking so much trash. Talking so much trash, man.
Josh on our text line says, D-Mace, now we know you're the best of the best with many, many, many highlight reels. But with today's era of social media, people love posting negative stuff. So I was just wondering, do you or have you ever watched your low light reels? And if so, did you laugh at yourself or were you upset about it and tried everything to get it off the internet immediately?
My low life reels. I don't have. I don't.
Are they out there?
That's what I'm saying. I don't think they're out there. Because I had some moments during the season where they wasn't great. And I would tend to want to forget about those. But other than that, I don't think they put your low life reels or
is the clip. Didn't
okay,
you say
highlight and low light.
Didn't you forget your helmet one time?
Oh yeah, that was
at Green Bay.
Green Bay, yes, that was.
Now,
but that was funny.
Is that clip out there on YouTube or anything like that?
It may be. Because it was 1998. Was it 98? Because that was the year that Reggie White supposedly retired, and he did the whole lap around the field, and it was
like
snowing.
a late season game,
snowing, and we're on the sideline, grab button, but just grab, yeah. But we just messing around. That's what we're doing, just messing around, and not paying attention. And Alan Lowry, they're screaming out, Mace, punt return, Mace,
punt return team,
punt return. So I get up, pew, I run out on the field. I'm like, yes. And
did it feel a little cold?
And no, because I had all this stuff on my head. Like I had a hat and I had so it felt warm. So I'm good. I run out to and then young ones, Mace, you ain't got your helmet. So I got to run over there, grab my helmet. I put my helmet on. He's kicking the ball.
So you were running back on the field and putting your helmet on as the play was going on?
As they were getting ready to do what they needed to do, I didn't even get my helmet really strapped up before the ball, and I just forget it.
Did you fair catch?
Yeah, I fair caught that one. Yeah, fair caught that one. I had 2 touchdowns that game, too.
Last one.
Got the big hit.
Austin on our text line.
Literally.
Austin on our text line wants to know how you feel about Xavier Restrepo, and do you think he'll make the team?
Listen, I think he's a good player. Obviously, he has an uphill battle. It's 40 time now. He doesn't look like a 4.8 guy when he's out on film. He looks more like a 4.5 guy. But I think he can have success because he catches the ball well. He finds holes in zones. He knows how to read and react. He has a feel for spacing. That's why he and Cam has so much success at the University of Miami, because once you're seeing the field like the quarterback seeing the field, I mean, the sky's the limit. And I think at the University of Miami, especially that last year where he was able to surpass some of the great receivers at the University of Miami to become the top guy as far as yardage and catches and touchdowns. Why did that happen? Well, it was able to happen because he built up, one, a rapport with the quarterback, but then 2, he knew how to play the game. He understood where the open spots were. He understood spacing, and he's tough. The kid's tough. Really, really good hands. And he's another guy that, he can be multiple in what you do. He's not really an outside guy, but listen, you can start him outside, motion him in, motion him from a 3x1 to a 2x2 to a 3x1. letting him be the slot guy, finding open holes in that zone. So, but again, it's an uphill battle for him. Just because he played with Cam in college doesn't mean he automatically will make the team. It will translate and he will make the team. I hope it does, because if it does, it helps the quarterback. I think from what I've seen of him, I think he's a good player, but it takes a lot, to have sustainability in this league. You got to be more than just good.
615-737-1025. Excellent participation today, everybody.
I love it.
So much so, we even tacked on an extra segment of Ask D-Mace. We learned so much today. I learned that Jared listens to Hoobastank. Who would have known? Hoobastank. Hoobastank was a band.
Where did they get that name from? Do you know?
God knows.
Oh, okay.
But they had some hits.
Hoobastank.
Crawling in the Dark. The Reason.
That's not it. That's not the one.
I don't think
That's not the song.
You know what, David James? Maybe you can play The Reason coming back from break. How about that? 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063 The Game. There you go, Jared. Some hoobastank for you. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan. By the way, I saw hoobastank once. They opened for Velvet Revolver. Does anybody know? Does anybody remember Velvet Revolver? It was the super group consisting of Guns N' Roses. Slash was in it. Duff McKagan was in it. Scott Weiland of Stone Temple Pilots was the lead singer. So Velvet Revolver with Hoobastank as support. It was
What is Velvet Revolver?
It was a strange show.
group.
It was the
strange crowd.
It was
I
a
would think.
strange crowd.
Oh.
Two very different crowds because you had the Guns N' Roses fans with
And
all
you
of
had
the
the
emo
Hoobastanks.
kids like me.
That song
Back-
had a little bit of a different vibe than the Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah, the
song
one
that
I was
D-Mace
thinking was
started
Earth,
singing.
Wind, and Fire.
Yeah,
A little
Totally
bit.
He thought it was Earth, Wind, and Fire.
No.
Okay.
So we stumbled across this earlier. So Kay Adams, is the Kentucky Derby this weekend?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
First Saturday in May.
Okay. Well, now sorry everybody. It's Kentucky Derby weekend.
Have you ever been?
I have not.
Apparently not.
No.
I would recommend going one time.
I don't know how I look in those big hats though.
You wouldn't wear a big hat.
No. Okay. Well,
I mean, it's not required.
Yeah,
for-
it's not required.
especially for the guys.
I feel like I would want to blend into the vibe, you
Well,
know.
just wear something colorful.
I don't think I own any seersucker.
Yeah, wear a seersucker suit. You'd be
that's
good.
you'll see a few of those. Yeah.
Yes. So Kay Adams is at the Kentucky Derby, and she is having a wide range of guests on her show, including Warren Moon. And a lot of the conversation with Kay Adams was about Warren Moon's decision to bestow the number one on Cam Ward. But then she asked about how involved Warren Moon will be in the development of Cam Ward. This is what Warren Moon had to say.
How involved are you going to be? Giving up that number, unretiring it? Like how many phone calls a week? Is there a film study Zoom session that we negotiated? Like you were invested in not letting that number or that man fail.
Hey, I'm gonna be a lot more involved than you
Yeah.
think. I'll just put it that way. I will have my little fingers in a lot of different things going on there.
Amazing. I think we have Mike Tirico coming on the show. We have Devontae Adams, right, coming on the show. We hope so. Do you think
That was Warren Moon.
So he did not provide any
No disrespect
detail.
to Devontae Adams,
Yeah.
but yeah.
but there was no detail to.
No.
He just dropped that in there.
He
though.
just says, I'm going to be a lot
like
more
the
involved
question
than you
was
think."
kind of like a joking thing,
Right.
but the answer was like, "Oh, I've thought about that. I'm in on this.
Yes.
What does that mean?"
That's a good question.
I would tend to believe now, hearing what he said, that he gave up that number with some stipulations.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, it does sound like it. That because again, I think the deliberate, and I'm gonna call it deliberate, the deliberate move parting from the Houston Oilers probably, doesn't sit well with some the old Houston players probably don't. And maybe this is a way to sort of keep that bridge attached, having Warren Moon, be some part of this somehow, some way with the rookie quarterback, because that's what it is. It's a breaking away, not we're forgetting about you, but this is the Tennessee Titans. No more are we going to wear the Oilers colors, meaning the throwback jerseys, that stuff. No, we are the Tennessee Titans. We get new uniforms, and this is going to be us. But I think Warren allows them to keep that bridge together. So he's going to be involved. But what does that mean? If he says, "Got my hands in it a lot,"
So
do you really want that?
Now, there's two parts to this,
Uh-huh.
because we did talk about, like, right when that story hit, my thought was, well, here's a really good opportunity for Warren Moon to sort of feel connected to the franchise, where, like, I'll never forget, I was at the one for, I think his name was Elvin Bethea.
Mhm.
Is it Larry Bethea or Elvin Bethea? Elvin Bethea, I think was his name. Houston Oiler, great.
Mhm.
Love you, Blue, Bum Phillips. He was a good defensive player. They brought him out one time for a halftime, and I felt so bad for him because all the fans were like, "Hey,
Who is that?"
Elvin Bethea."
His jersey was retired in a halftime ceremony in Nashville on
Yeah.
October 1st, 2006.
2006. Okay, so, and I felt for him because there was just zero connection. None of the fans sitting in the stands Watch that guy play.
Exactly.
Maybe there was a few dozen who were from Houston or something. I knew who he was. I had his football card and everything like that. I was like, hey, all right. But this is the issue, I think, for Warren Moon. He's in no man's land. The Texans probably aren't going to honor him in Houston, and he doesn't really have that love in Nashville. But this is a way for him to maybe connect a little bit more. So, ambassador to the team, that's a no-brainer, right? This franchise needs good ambassadors. Warren Moon would be great.
Yeah,
but as far as like helping Cam Ward on the football side, that's a little bit of a slippery slope because, yeah, you want Warren Moon to be a good influence, love to have a mentor relationship, but how does that work within the scheme of all of his actual coaches?
I was going to say, it seems like a good thing that a Hall of Fame quarterback wants to be a sounding board for a rookie quarterback who was the number 1 overall pick. But to your point, Willie, I hadn't thought about it that way. You don't want, I'm not saying that this would happen, but you don't want Warren Moon to like, what's the word I'm looking for here? To counteract what the Titans coaches are doing with
I think
Cam
what
Ward.
you do is, and this is why he's saying, he is sort of be in the mix. I think what you do is, as an organization, is you get him to know the coaching staff and what they're looking at and what they want, just so he can kind of, give his thought on some things, because neither one of them played that position at that level, And if you have somebody like Warren Moon, you tell him what you're looking for. If you go over the offense with him, whatever you do, so that when he does talk to Cam Ward, it's not like he's telling them something different. He's just strictly speaking from, okay, I know what they want to do. Now let me speak just more throwing the football. I'm not talking about scheme or anything, because I know what they want to do. I got an idea of what they want to do, but just from throwing the football, what you may be looking at, where your eyes should be somewhere, what you should see as far as blitzes, how guys are lining up, but it's more so technique stuff that you need to do. It's just like, essentially, he would be, because guys have quarterback coaches outside of football. A lot of guys do, that they train with. He
Skills
can be
more
exactly.
yeah.
He can be that extension for Cam Ward. Like, hey man, I see some things on film, man. Your elbow or your arms out here, or maybe try to throw that a little bit quicker.
Mechanics,
things that maybe Callahan is saying, that he just reiterating some of those things.
It's interesting. Some of the greatest players do not end up being. I mean, this is not always true.
They don't end up being great coaches.
That's what the greats don't usually become great coaches and teachers of the game. It's more the backup catcher, the third string quarterback. Those Gary Kubiak, the guys like that end up a lot of times being the masterminds and the better teachers. Well, I will say this: if Warren Moon can help Cam Ward spiral, like Warren Moon had the tightest spiral
I never seen
in the history of the game.
I never seen a ball come off somebody's hands so pretty.
It is the prettiest ball.
I don't think he ever threw a wobbly ball.
I never saw one.
Even in Buffalo. I don't think he threw a wobbly ball. Some happened, they lost, but still, I don't think it's because of his wobbly balls. But no, he throws a tight spiral. So,
but I do think it's tricky though, because you might it might seem like a good idea, but where are the boundaries?
Yeah.
What's the territory of the coaches? Is it
That's
just more
where
of
it
a, is it
becomes
just more
tricky.
of a, hey, this is like your old high school coach, your uncle, where you're not worried about the scheme and everything. It's just to be like a sounding board. You're more of an outsider.
It's more like, say if Bill Callahan wasn't coaching.
Yeah.
And he's just at home, and Brian Callahan, he knows his dad's been a head coach. Dad, what do you think?
Yeah.
Or he called and say,
sometimes it's your uncle.
Exactly. It's
or
just
your
somebody
cousin
giving
or-
you
yeah.
a different view of things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's what it will be in a sense.
But he's hinting that there's something. They've talked about this.
Something's brewing.
Something's brewing.
Yeah.
One texter says, Bull, he just asked the Titans if the check was going to bounce.
But I can say this.
Does he get a percentage of the sales of the number 1 jerseys? Is that what you're saying?
Perhaps.
I will say this. This is one thing I'm going to say about the coaching staff. I don't think it's maybe you can throw Borgonzi and Brinket in there. They are trying their best to do any and everything they can from a personnel standpoint to make it work for this young kid, this young man, excuse me. Bringing in McCoy, who had been an offensive coordinator, who has been around and been a quarterback coach of some really good quarterbacks, great quarterbacks. Obviously, we know Brian's background. You're bringing in all these people, McKenzie from Green Bay, so he saw how they won and how they sort of did their business. So you're bringing in all these people that are really good at certain things to try to make sure this quarterback doesn't fail. That's good. Now you got to start adding players as well. So adding Warren Moon, great. As long as this kid, whatever gets this kid to a point, this young man to a point where, he's going to be that dude, then do it. Obviously, you can't have too many people in there, but if it means bringing Warren Moon in to, just talk with them once a month or whatever it is, it helps.
The only thing I would be careful of, and you asked this question, Adam, is you can get philosophical differences, right? And both ways can work. Let's say the coaching staff is teaching one technique for a certain read or a certain footwork or something, and Warren Moon's like, well, this is how I did it. And it happens to be different than what the coaches have been pounding into his head every day. That's where you can get a little sticky. And then it's like, well, did we tell Warren Moon he's wrong? But I experienced it as a minor league player. They had a lot of instructors throughout the minor league. Some were your coach for your team, and then there were roving guys that came in. So I had two major league players that I grew up watching, loved watching play. Great guys and great players. I don't know how many people would know these names. One was Bill Buckner, the Bill Buckner, and the other was a guy named Richie Hebner, who was also a great player for a long time. They had very different styles and philosophies of hitting.
Yeah.
And I got one guy telling me one thing and one guy telling me another thing. Who do I listen to? Which great major leaguer, right? And I might be deep down going, well, I'm doing it more like this guy, but is Bill Buckner going to get mad at me if I don't do what he says?
Okay.
Like that's the dilemma that you can get into.
This is what I
It may not seem like a big thing, but it depending on what it is, it can turn into something.
You're absolutely right. But this is what I was told, it had to be my third or fourth year when Heimerdinger got here, fourth, fifth year, somewhere around there. Still young. And he would say, listen, I know how we drew it up. I know I told you that this is how we want to do it and this is how you should run it. He said, but it's you and the quarterback's thing. So y'all figure it out. However, if you feel you need to run it that way, then run it that way, as long as it get ran within the parameters of what we're trying to do. So if you want to take a 1-step or 2-step slant, work them a little bit, just make sure the quarterback knows that's what you're doing. Okay. So it's the same thing with Cam Ward. It's like any good coach, I believe, doesn't mind a player coming in and say, Coach, can I try it this way? Just to see if it works. The coaches that I've been around say, okay, go ahead, try it that way. See if it works that way. Because ultimately, what do you want to do? Make him feel comfortable. You want him to be comfortable. So if you do it that way and it doesn't work, then okay. We tried it your way. We tried it your way a few times. It just didn't work. Now let's try to hone in on but if it works, it's like, okay, add it to what we're doing. That's all.
You don't want to get to a deal, Adam, where you would have to say, Mr. Moon, we tried this.
No, you don't.
It's not working, so we can't have you come to practice anymore. Like that's where it gets really, and then Warren Moon doesn't feel good about things. The Titans, they come across as they just kicked Warren Moon out of practice. Who wouldn't want a Hall of Famer at the practice? But you could see where it can go in separate philosophical directions. What's his title? He's not a coach, right? I've seen stuff like that happen.
Don't pull a Dolan. Kick him out. Kick him out of practice.
It's like, remember Gene Hackman in Hoosiers, where the interim coach, who is the guy that plays Eddie Harris in Major League, he's running the practice, and he says, "Yeah, it's the first day of practice. Gene Hackman comes in and he's like, Norman Dale comes in and, hey, what are you doing here? And the guy's like, well, I thought we'd run 10 minutes on, we'd scrimmage 20 minutes, and then we take 20 minutes off. And then he's like, leave the ball here. You go. You're not a coach. I appreciate you doing this. Go. And he doesn't take it. Eddie Harris doesn't take it real well.
Nah, didn't.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show with a little take it to the bank, and we'll also bring in our friend Jared Stillman. We'll do that next. Willie Dunnick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. D Mace Fingan and Donick 1025, 1063 the game. It's time to take it to the bank with F&M Bank. At F&M Bank, their mission is to make lives easier by making banking. Make lives better by making banking easier. Less worry, more living. F&M Bank, banking made easy on purpose. So quickly, before we get to Jared Stillman, because this is sort of the informal take it to the bank since the official season is over.
And I won.
And Derek won.
Yeah.
Quickly, 2 Game 7s. One in the NBA, one in the NHL tomorrow. Let's do these quick predictions. Clippers at Nuggets at 6:30. Avalanche, it's at Stars at 7 o'clock. Willie Donick, your winners of those 2 Game 7s.
Well, and shout out to Denver. What a fun time. And it's making up for the fact that the Colorado Rockies on the baseball diamond are, what are they, 6 and 25?
5 wins.
I didn't even put that together.
I think they're up to 6. They won last night.
Oh, they did?
I think
Okay,
they got to 6.
Then it's 6. Then it's 6.
I didn't even put 2 and 2 together there.
But
You're
until
right.
they beat the Braves on Thursday, I think they were trying to avoid the worst April start since like 1904 or something like that. So the good thing for Colorado fans, they got the Nuggets and Avs in Game 7s. I just like the Nuggets a little better. I don't enjoy James Harden's style of play. It's not that fun to watch. I'm rooting for the Nuggets, so I'm going to pick with my artistic flair. They're at home. They're only a 1.5 point favorite at home in Game 7. I will take the Nuggets on that one. And I'm going to go for the Denver sweep. I'm going to say that the Avalanche, I just think, have been better throughout the series. I feel like Dallas has been hanging on. They have trouble containing the Avs, and the Avs can get a little loose, but I think they're just the better team, and I think the Avs win in Dallas in Game 7.
I will agree with Willie. It'll be a great Saturday night in Denver. Give me the Nuggets and the Avalanche. Derek?
I am going to take the Avalanche, but I differ from you two.
You're going to take the Clippers.
I want to see Kawhi, man. Kawhi's been so beat up and hadn't really played in the playoffs in the last 20 years. No, it's not happening that long. But he has been often injured. He had been in many playoff games. But I think if he's healthy, this is a team that has the potential to be in the Western Conference Finals. So I'm going with the Clippers.
David, your choices.
Give me the Joker, and then I'm going to go with the Stars.
All right. Let's welcome in Jared Stillman. Jared, as I understand it, you're in Atlanta. Tell me what you're doing in Atlanta today.
Oh, we are here with the Atlanta Braves, and it's great to have them as partners with the radio station. But we're here with the Atlanta Braves. May in the A gets kicked off, and the Braves and Dodgers tonight. The world champions are in town. And so, when the world champions show up, they have to bring me in. That's it. They have got to go bring the stars in there for the – they said, hey, we've got the Dodgers coming to town. These probably have been the 2 best teams in the National League for the last 5 or 6 years.
How did you get in this? How did you get in the city of Atlanta, man? Your head's so big, man. How did you even get across the border?
It is a big city.
First of all, the stadium is in Cobb County, Georgia.
Uh-huh.
They decided to move away from Atlanta. As Ted Turner was asked if he was going to come to the opening of the new stadium, he said he roots for the Atlanta Braves, not the Marietta Braves.
Mm-hmm.
But they did not allow me to Atlanta. First of all, D-Mace, you know Atlanta. I am welcome in Atlanta. They like people like me in Atlanta. I fit in right in. So, of course, they wanted to have me. But, again, it reminds me of when I used to cover the Celtics when I was in New Hampshire. And if there was a big game, a big regular season game, a big playoff game, Stephen A. Smith would show up to the game. That's kind of how I feel about me. Grace Braves with my
All right,
presence.
we're gonna gloss over that. We're just gonna move on to the next topic. So, Jared, before you came on, we were discussing Warren Moon did an interview with Kay Adams at the Kentucky Derby. She asked him about how involved he is going to be in the development of Cam Ward. And he said, I'm going to be a lot more involved than you think. I'll just put it that way. When you hear that, what sort of involvement do you think Warren Moon will or should have in the development of Cam Ward, or just in terms of having a relationship with Cam Ward?
I have no idea what that means. And I'm not even going to try to pretend that I know what that means. Warren Moon, and I love Warren. Warren always comes on the show at the Super Bowl. I'm sure Willie and Derek have known Warren for a long, long time. I love Warren. He is a good guy. And he loves to remind people to get vaccinated against pneumococcal pneumonia. I think that was his big thing at the Super Bowl. But, I mean, he's always very diplomatic. when it comes to the Titans and it comes to the Oilers. And he told me, you know, that he thinks that Amy treats him and the Oiler alumni very, very well. He told me that he's proud, you know, at the Super Bowl, that he's proud of, you know, being a Titan and what that's going to mean. You know, hopefully they can get this thing turned around. I don't know what, because at the Super Bowl, before they had drafted Cam Ward, Warren was talking about, you know, hoping that maybe there's a little extra there for Will Levis. Clearly, they're going in the direction of Cam Ward. Is this like a mentorship where Cam asked Warren to be a mentor and to be there for him? Is it something where Amy's going to hire Warren in some capacity? I don't know. Anything that I would say is just pure speculation. But I will say this of what I know of Warren Moon, and I really like Warren Moon. I don't think this franchise can be hurt by having more Warren Moon around it.
And that's what I was going to ask you, Jared. Like, would this be a good thing? I see it from the standpoint of him not being like involved in play calling or anything like of that you know, sort of fact, but him more so being an outsider, Cam calling him whenever, you know, he wants to sort of lay something on him or ask him something. He's more of that type of person than the person that's going to be visible, you know, each and every week at this organization.
And I think that's great. I mean, in all seriousness, I don't feel like there's a lot of, you know, Oiler connection. You know, there's not a lot of, and, you know, when Pekka Rinne got his number retired and got inducted into the Predators Hall of Fame, I said, you know, there's kind of, when you get inducted into a Hall of Fame, when you get your number retired, when you're viewed as a franchise great, the things that you say matter more than just anybody else. And I think we've seen that to an extent with Eddie George, where Eddie George has always been very diplomatic when it comes to the Titans, because if Eddie George were to come out and say something like, Will Levis sucks, that's going to be a massive headline, and it's going to have to be something that's addressed. We saw when Jeff Fisher got into it with Eric Dickerson in LA, and how that was kind of the nail in the coffin for Jeff Fisher with the Rams was concerned. So when you have a franchise great, I think there's kind of a sentiment that, hey, this guy's word matters more. This guy's opinion is valued more. I mean, there's a Hall of Fame next to it. And no disrespect, D-Mace, to you or anybody else, but the Titans just don't have a lot of that lately. Like, there's just not a lot of, you know, all-time great Titans roaming around. So as I said, the more Warren Moon they can have, the better, especially for Cam. Like, if Cam can look up to Warren Moon and there can be great. I mean, again, I'm not banking his development on Warren Moon's involvement, but I just cannot see it hurting, because I know the kind of guy Warren is, and I know how much Warren cares about the team, and I know how much Warren knows about football. And so I can't see it hurting the operation.
Jared, you're down with the Braves. I'll ask you your thoughts on how you feel the Braves are climbing out of the hole they started in this year. I'm always under the assumption, as a Met fan who has been beaten down by the Braves more often than not the last 20 years or so, I always assume they're going to figure it out. Are you pretty confident that they're moving in the right direction?
I got to say, the first week and a half of the season, I really thought this Braves season was going to be a lot like the Predators season, where just a disastrous start and an inability to dig out of the hole. But there's a couple things at play here. I kept seeing stats like nobody in the history of baseball has started 0-7 and made the playoffs. Well, that's true, but making the playoffs in baseball now compared to 30 years ago, not exactly the same level of difficulty. They've added like 6 new playoff rounds between now and then. So what we've learned over the last couple of years, if you can get to 84 wins, 85 wins, you can get in the dance. And with baseball, it's not like football, where for sure the team with the better team is going to win. Get a couple of hot pitchers, get a guy that can carry a lineup, and that can go a far way. You know, but I was nervous that the Braves had dug themselves too far of a hole. And then they played the Twins, and then they played some of these other Scarbini teams, and I think they're going to dig themselves out of it. Now, they did lose to the Rockies the other day, and the Rockies have won 5 games this season. So that's certainly not a promising sign. But I will say this. We'll see how they do against the Dodgers.
Hey.
And if the Braves could show up against the Dodgers, then maybe there's a little something there.
Hey, can you lighten up on Chig, man? I mean, just because he go on vacation doesn't mean he's not working out, man.
I loved how Joe Rexrode this morning was just losing his mind over it. about like, oh, you can't say who can go on vacation and who can't go on vacation, and that's not fair. And I'm like, all I know is Derek Mason, since the year 2000, is 4th amongst wide receivers with EPA per target. That's a big nerd stat that people like Fingan and Willie show us love. I mean, Derek, I think you're one behind. I think you're one behind Randy Moss and one ahead of Marvin Harrison. So I'd say that's pretty good company. And you said you didn't have time to go on 4 international vacations during the offseason. So, I mean, all I know is one guy wore number 85 for the Titans, and he didn't have time to go on 4 or 5 international trips during a year. Another guy wears number 85. He's got the time to go on all these international trips, and one of them was really, really good, and the other one sucks. And so I guess I'm just using.
And he can go on vacation, man. He can go on vacation. Leave him alone, Jerry.
That'll do it.
You got enough time. You got enough
4
time to
times?
keep punching him. Okay, you got a whole season to punch on
You
him.
can pick this up at 2:00, Jared. That'll do it for us this week. One programming note: Vandy baseball has been moved to a 7:30 p.m. first pitch tonight, with 7:15 pregame, beginning right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company with Hoobastank #1 fan Jared Stillman coming up next.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Friday and weekend. Peace. See you Monday.